I am Audrey Gale Hall, Membership Coordinator here at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a new world. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you and invite you to fill out our visitor card, which is in the lobby. It's yellow, so that you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. Again, welcome to all. We are a church in many places. Some of us here in the pews and others joining from YouTube, at home, or wherever you might be. And our world is a different one than it was in early 2020. So our worship service has changed accordingly. People on site are sitting in every other pew with space between families. Our offering baskets are here at the front and in the back. And you can drop off your offering throughout the service rather than passing the plates between us. But I have an announcement on behalf of our reopening task force, which is that as of today, we can sing in the pews with our masks on. So previously, only our musicians were singing, but now we get to join our voices together. So this is a reminder to silence your cell phone, although we will have more vocal noise happening. And following the worship service, folks in the pews can head outside to the courtyard or to the playground if you want to chat and hang out and maybe even jump around. And we'll also have social time on Zoom for those of y'all tuning in. So this is a chance to gather in smaller groups, discuss the service, and check in on how our lives are going. For folks online, we'll give that link at the end of worship, and it's also in the e-blast. Okay, so let's get started with a prelude. This prelude is a piano etude written in the 1920s by a Ukrainian composer, pianist, and educator named Viktor Kosienko.
Good morning. Extra points to all of you who made it to worship in person on daylight savings time. I'm impressed. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. We speak to the God, the goddess, the spirit of life, the eternal. We speak to the mysterious thread that connects us one to the other and to the universe. We speak to the deep wisdom at the center of our beings. We embody the yearning of all people. We light this chalice to honor our work, to celebrate our community, and to bring hope and determination to our mission in the wider world. Now, let us rise either in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 298. The words are up on the screen. Wake now, my senses. Once upon a time, in the near future, the minister met with the young adult group at the church. And asked them a question. What is your ministry? Now, of the young adults, some of them had thought of this before, and for some it was the first time they thought about having a ministry of their own. So the discussion was long and protracted and deep and rich. One young adult said, I know what my ministry is. During COVID, I started a community garden for my area of the city, which is poor in fresh fruit. I taught people how to garden in containers, and I organized a parcel of land where we could all grow in greater quantities together to help bring fresh fruit to this neighborhood. And another young adult said, I know what my ministry is. During COVID, I was really concerned about our different a cappella groups and choirs and other musical groups who couldn't get together to sing in person anymore. So I did a lot of volunteer work to take in individual recordings people made from their own homes and then splice them all together so that they would sound like a choir in the recording, even though they had never actually been physically together. This was a labor of love that took hundreds and hundreds of hours, but it was my ministry, so I did it. And another young adult said, I know what my ministry is. It is my occupation. I am a physical therapist, and I work with people who have been injured in various ways and help them rehabilitate muscles that have grown weak or have been damaged after they broke a bone or tore a tendon or all sorts of things. Mine is a healing ministry. And another young adult said, I know what my ministry is. I am a sower. S-E-W-E-R, not S-O-W-E-R. I quilt together stoles, like the one I'm wearing, and altar cloths, so that churches and ministers can have beautiful tapestries and of symbolic liturgical elements for their worship services. And so the conversation continued. Some young adults took a little more time, but eventually most of them discerned what it is that their ministry is that they are currently engaged in. And then the minister said, all that you have shared is what you as individuals do for your own personal ministry. But you are a young adult group here in a congregation, in a Unitarian Universalist church. What do you do for a ministry together as a community, as a congregation? How do you engage in that kind of ministry? And they shared about the ways in which they had volunteered before the pandemic for the English language learners program, how they helped to teach people English. And they talked about how they volunteered to put sandwiches together for people who are homeless. And they talked about how they used to get together to work on building projects through rebuilding Houston for people who needed homes. And the minister said, those are all wonderful ministries, and they are community, congregational ministries in which you have engaged together. And that is wonderful. And that's also all about who the church was in the past, what you used to do as a group ministry before COVID came. What's next? Will you return to these same ministries? Will they change in some fashion? Will you add new ministries and drop others? Who are you as a congregation, as a community, as a group becoming? Who are you in the process of becoming? And that is the end of our story this morning. Is it the beginning?
Giving out of what is our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering, not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community, and as a way to live out our shared values. Please give with a generous heart to support our March Share the Plate recipient, the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum. The mission of the Rutherford B.H. Yates Museum is to promote preservation, education, archaeology, and research of African diaspora history, focusing on the period of enslavement and post-slavery era in Houston's Freedom's Town, the Gulf Coast region of Texas, and their connections to other regions in the world. And as always, 25% of our offering will go to Interfaith Ministry Meals on Wheels, feeding Houston seniors. We have 4 ways to give. You can text the number on the screen, go to our webpage for online giving, or you can put in our offering basket or mail a check to the church.
Please find a comfortable place in your seats. Place your feet flat on the floor if you can and if you will. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And take a deep breath in. As together we enter into a time of meditation followed by silence. Each morning we hold out the chalice of our being, to be filled with the graces of life that abound, air to breathe, food to eat, companions to love, beauty to behold, art to cherish, causes to serve. They come in ritual procession, these gifts of life. Whether we deserve them, we cannot know or say, for they are poured out of us. Our task is to hold steady the chalice of our being. We carry the chalice with us as we go, either aimlessly or with destination in our eye. We share abundance, if we have any sense, reminding others as we remind ourselves of the contents of the chalice we don't deserve. Water from living streams fills it. If only we hold it out faithfully. We give back, if we can, something of ourselves, some love, some beauty, some grace, some gift. We give back in gratitude, if we can, something like what is poured into our chalice of being. For those who abide with us and will follow, each morning we hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, to give back. Let us now enter into the silence together. Amen, and blessed be.
Ministry is all that we do together. Ministry is the quality of being in community that affirms human dignity, beckons forth hidden possibilities, invites us into deeper, more constant, reverent relationships, and carries forward our heritage of hope and liberation. Ministry is what we do together as we celebrate triumphs of our human spirit, miracles of birth and life, wonders of devotion and sacrifice. Ministry is what we do together with one another, in terror and torment, in grief, in misery and pain, enabling us in the presence of death to say yes to life. We who minister speak and live the best we know, with full knowledge that it is never quite enough, and yet are reassured by lostness found, wounds healed, and joy shared. Ministry is what we all do together. In just a moment, Juan and Sean are going to perform a piece by Franz Schubert called Du bist die Ruhe. Traditionally, this poem usually is more in a romantic sense, but I believe the text can be used in maybe what ministers to you. And so as you read the text will be on the screen, the English translation. I encourage you to just ponder of who ministers to you in your lives.
Du bist die Ruhe der Friede mit, die Sehnsucht du und was sie stillt. Ich weihe dir vor Lust und Schmerz. Zur Wohnung hier, mein Auge und Herz, mein Auge und Herz. Kehr ein bei mir und schließe du still hinter dir die Pforten zu. Treib an der Schmerz aus dieser Brust. Voll sei dies Herz von deiner Lust, von deiner Lust. Die Saugen zahlt von deinem Platz alleiner Halt. O fühl es ganz, o fühl es ganz. Die Saugen zahlt von deinem Glatz alleiner Halt. O fühl es ganz, o fühl es ganz.
Last spring, you all were invited, those of you who are here around back last spring, to join in a couple of workshops to discern the core values of this community. And I promised at that point to then engage in a series of sermon sermons based on those core values over this coming year. So today, we are on the last of the 5 core values. They are, as a reminder, caring, welcoming, community, integrity, and ministry. Today, we are exploring the value of ministry. When I was a kid, I loved going to church. Sunday school, maybe, maybe not, depending on the year and the teacher and the topic. But church, I loved being in church. And I paid attention to what was going on, what lessons were taught in those first 15 or 20 minutes while I was there. One of them, this was not a Unitarian Universalist church, but one of them was about who are the ministers of the church. In that tradition, the ministers, people like me who were ordained and wore robes and stoles, were called pastors. Although day to day, we usually called them the ministers. But technically, they were pastors. And they taught us that every single person who was a member of the church was actually a minister. Everyone, all of us are ministers. They even had it printed right on the order of service. Pastors, Reverend so-and-so, and Reverend so-and-so. Ministers, all members of this church. You're all surprised I grew up and went to seminary, right? The kid who loved church. You may have guessed, I don't know, maybe you didn't, that the story I told this morning was somewhat based on reality. From way back before I went to seminary, I was one of those young adults sitting at a UU church, and it was my minister who came in and asked my young adult group, "What is your ministry?" And we had similar conversations. Most of the ministries were different, although we did have a physical therapist in our group. That was about the time that I received my calling to ministry. When people seek out a more formal ministry, a professional ministry, and head off to seminary, they usually do so as the result of something we refer to as a calling. It's an old theological term. Usually it used to mean a calling from God, although our term can be more expansive these days. Mine happened one summer while sitting at the dining room table. I was reading a magazine article about inspiration, and someone asked Gandhi, "Do you have a motto in life or a mission in your life?" And his response was, "My life is my message." And when I read those words, I had something that is maybe deeper and more spiritual than an epiphany, but I can only describe as an epiphany. It was instantaneous. And I realized that that was what I wanted my life to be and my message to be. And in order for that to happen, I had to go and become a minister. I had not consciously thought of that at all as an adult until that moment. So I didn't trust the experience right away. And I did a lot of research to back it up and convince myself that this calling was true and a good idea. When I got to seminary, I learned about one of our early Unitarian ministers, William Ellery Channing, who is the person credited with first formally articulating in a sermon the tenets of what a Unitarian believes as opposed to a Congregationalist, which is the denomination we split from, and which is the denomination I was attending as a. And when he ordained another minister, he concluded the sermon by saying these words: "May your life preach more loudly than your lips. May your life preach more loudly than your lips." A message I share with all of you today, in which to me echoed and reaffirmed my calling. My life is my message. So now I share it with you and ask you the questions that I explored in the story this morning with the young adult group. Do you have a calling in your life? It doesn't have to be to professional ministry, although it might turn out to be that. What are you called to do? What is your purpose? Why are you here? How did you receive your call? Did it happen in an instantaneous moment, or seep in over time until suddenly you realized that this is where you were headed all along? How did you receive it? What is it? Still waiting, still listening, still wondering. In terms of this church, Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church, the congregation has its own mission, its own purpose. You hear it every Sunday. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world. The core values inform us about how we act as we live out the church's purpose, the church's mission, the congregation's mission. How do we build a better world? We do it by engaging in ministry. That is one of the ways. And yes, I saved ministry to last because it can very easily wrap all other core values up into itself. A caring ministry, a welcoming ministry, community, a community ministry, integrity, a ministry filled with integrity. That is what this congregation is all about. Building a better world by caring, by welcoming, by coming together in community and broadening that community, by engaging in ministry with integrity. When you had this discussion back in the fall about the core values, there was a lot that was folded into the topic of ministry. Ministry can be big things, it can be little things, it can be one thing, it can be many. The one that really rose to the top last spring was music. Music is a ministry. It brings beauty into the world. It sustains and supports the message of the entire rest of the worship service. It helps us, guides us in building a better world. Our music leaders, our pianist, our vocalists, our choir, our music director, our instrumentalists are not performers. They are not here to put on a performance for you, the audience. They are co-leaders of worship. They are engaged in ministry that is as deep and meaningful and powerful as my own. They are your worship leaders, and you are here engaging in worship with them. I know that language often comes with a lot of baggage, and I believe that it is powerful to reclaim reverential language if it has caused you pain or angst in the hurt, woundedness in the past. I don't want to let go of words like worship or ministry. Worship simply means holding up that which is worthy. And your worship leaders every week hold up that which is worthy and invite you in to also help with holding up that which is worthy and engaging in discussions and moving your spirits and singing along with the hymns. Ministry is many things. It's music, it's worship, it's big, it's small. And it's all about building a better world in some way. There are many needs out there in our world right now. We may feel like they are too many. It's too much, too heavy, too weighty when we think about all the world's needs and everything that needs to be done in order to build a better world. Though I maintain it's not really all that much different than it ever was before. It's just uncovered now. It has been revealed. More of us are able to see and hear and know what the needs are. More of us, to use the common term, have woken up, or a process of waking up. There is one that is weighing especially heavy on my heart right now. You may have been following it in the news. You're able to read the news right now. And that is the legislation targeting trans kids and youth that is currently making its way through the courts. In case you have not heard or are not familiar, the governor asked the Attorney General to put together an opinion about whether parents of children who are transgender can be investigated for potential child abuse. And despite being 100% clear, the governor took it and ran with it. And investigations have begun. CPS has been knocking on doors of people who have transgender kids. They know who they are because they've been lobbying all summer and much of last year at the state capitol. Texas Children's Hospital has stopped providing gender-affirming care. They have stopped providing medical care that saves lives. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not being metaphorical. I am being 100% literal. Gender-affirming care saves lives. You may know that I am married to a person who is transgender, who didn't have the opportunity to have care when he was young. And I personally feel like it is an absolute miracle that he lives when he came out and began his transition. And was and still am filled with hope that it doesn't have to be that way anymore. It doesn't have to. We know better now. It's horrific. As a caring, welcoming community filled with integrity of people who feel compassion and empathy, this should have us concerned for all of our children. It is truly horrific, absolutely horrific. And in addition to our concern for our transgender children and youth, it should have all of us concerned for all our medical care when physicians are not being allowed to provide care that is supported by science, by medicine, by all of the medical licensing bodies agree that these are safe, effective, appropriate, and life-saving care. And we're stopping our physicians from being able to do this as they know best, preventing them from doing no harm, which is their oath. And it might be trans kids right now, but next time it might be me and it might be you, as we chip away one little piece at a time with all of this legislation. It might be me, it might be you. It's the pregnant woman who needs an abortion for medical reasons. All of us. And it's not just this issue that has been revealed recently. There's all sorts of issues out there that have been revealed, have become more clear during the last couple of years of this pandemic. The racism, the systemic, broad, wide racism, oppression for people of all sorts of different kinds of marginalized identities. It's all out there, all waiting for our ministry. It's part of what we do as a caring, welcoming community of integrity that engages in ministry. I don't want this sermon to be a downer. I don't want this sermon to leave us without hope. There is a concept in Judaism in which people are expected to do good deeds, mitzvot. And there is an understanding that each of us can return a spark to the divine. None of us can do all of the work alone, but each of us can return a spark here or a spark there by engaging in good deeds, by engaging in mitzvot, by engaging in ministry. The work will not be completed in my lifetime, nor in yours, but we all do our parts in different ways, according to our skills, talents, abilities. The important part is that we all do it, that we all engage in it. And for this congregation, as individuals, right, from the story, and for this congregation, as your interim minister during a time of great and unwelcome change, a congregation that is turning from a very long and established professional ministry, which was Mark and Becky for over 20 years, and also toward a post-pandemic world. We're not there yet, but we're inching closer and closer and closer. We're down to yellow for Harris County. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Can't wait for green. It is critical to ask not only what your ministry has been, but what your ministry is now during COVID, and also what your ministry is going to be in the future. What are your hopes and dreams that you want to fulfill and engage in with your next minister, which is only a little over a year from now? It's coming faster than you might think. What is it that the future holds for each of you as individuals and for this congregation as a whole? And so I return to the question from this morning's story as I prepare to close this message with this. Is this the end? Or is this the beginning? I know my answer. I think it's the beginning. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. Now, let us rise either in body or spirit for our closing hymn that we get to sing again when our heart is in a holy place.
Much of ministry is a benediction, a speaking well of each other and the world, a speaking well of what we value: caring, community, welcoming, integrity, a speaking well of our efforts, a speaking well of our dreams, This is how we celebrate life, through speaking well of it, living the benediction, and becoming as a word well spoken. Our time together is finished, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week to come. The chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion. In peace. But before you go, I have some announcements. First is that we have social time now here in the courtyard and on Zoom. Second is that for those of y'all at home and everybody here, you can find recordings of this and previous and future services on our YouTube channel. Third is a special piece of information from Deborah Watring and Dory Wolf, which says, "Come one, come all to the Emerson Church Retreat. Let's connect spiritually with one another and with nature on May 20th, 21st, and 22nd at Brazos Bend State Park." And you can see the e-blast in your inbox or check in with Deborah Watring or Dory Wolf to learn more about that. And lastly, today is our March open house. So for those of you who are brand new to the church, kind of new to the church, old timers who want to stick around, you can find me in the gathering place afterwards for an open house discussion about what membership at Emerson means. And so now actually go in peace.